Welcome to the Teacher Experience podcast. We are so grateful that you have come back since our first podcast last week. We are so excited to do this one and hope that you enjoy it. Obviously, some of you are new to this podcast, so just to introduce ourselves first. I am Miss Wild and I am a lead practitioner in teaching and learning.
I'm Miss Dearman. I'm a science teacher and also assistant Senko.
So let's get started. So if you watched last week's podcast, you will know that at the beginning of each podcast, what we do is a WWW, so what went well, and an EBI, which is an even better if of our weeks. So, Miss Dimon, what is your what went well from this week?
My what went well. So I was back to school this week, first week after Christmas.
Tough.
Yeah, well, it was really nice because the kids were all really excited to share their Christmas presents they got with me, and they had a lovely time. And I actually really enjoy that coming back.
Yeah.
It's not like when you go back to work when you don't have a school's job and everyone's a bit meh. Everyone's a bit like, oh, back to work. Whereas when you see the kids, they're all really excited. Saying that, they also forget how they're supposed to act at school. So my pupils,
what are routines?
Yeah, my pupils had 3 weeks off, and I think it's just enough time for them to forget that you don't speak over me in the classroom, etc. So what went well for me this week was establishing those routines again.
Mm-hmm.
Undoubtedly, and I predict it every time, they forget, but
Yep.
It went really well actually. All my classes from year 9 to year 13, they got into it really well. A-level classes are different anyway. They tend to have a better attitude and remember.
They do. They know they've got exams coming up, don't they? So they are quite sort of, I'm going to concentrate, I'm going to come back. And they've got that extra level of maturity, which is quite nice.
Yeah. And it's the first time in science that they choose your subject.
Yeah.
So we don't have that like other teachers do. So we have to teach everyone science. And I don't know how you feel, but majority of kids don't necessarily enjoy it. So at GCSE, we have to teach all of them, whereas A-level is the first time I'm teaching pupils that choose my subject. So even that just changes their attitude as well, because they've chosen to be there. So yeah, my what went well was establishing new routines. So that was awesome.
Well done you.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. So what would be your even better if?
My even better if would be, oh gosh, on literally the first day back. So we had our inset day, which went really well. The first day back, I forgot the milk.
Oh,
I know.
Miss Dimon.
I know. So, and we as a department buy it together, and it was my turn to bring in the milk. So it wasn't just me that didn't have a cup of tea.
Oh, I bet you were the favourite.
I know. I did actually run out and get some in the middle of the day because I was panicking and I felt really bad because my department's really awesome. So we come together at break time and we have a cup of tea together. We have 10 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
But I was also aware that no one was going to be drinking tea. So yeah, even better if I had remembered the milk.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing both of those. So on our Teach podcast, what we also like to do is find out the typical teacher day of our guests. Obviously, it's just Miss Dimon and I today. So Miss Dimon, what is your typical teacher day?
Okay, so I think I'm a bit more fluid compared to you in terms of my structure of my day.
Yeah.
So I am not that person that gyms every day.
So you're the person that doesn't like me.
Yeah, that person that comes into the department, my room, and they're like, oh, I've been to the gym this morning. I'm like, oh God, here we go. I'm not that person. I love going to the gym twice a week.
Of course.
And if it's twice a week, I'm happy with myself. I don't know if it's because I'm newer into teaching. I find the job so exhausting, physically, mentally. You're on your feet all day. If I get to sit down for 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I'm on my feet all day. So I don't gym every day. Twice a week is my aim. Tuesdays and then Sundays.
Yeah.
I gym. So my day typically looks like, not including gym day, my alarm will go off at 6:30. My partner is that person that jumps straight in the shower and is out the door in 20 minutes. I am not that person.
Nope.
So I snooze my alarm for like 20 minutes and I love it. And I do scroll on my phone. I know people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I love it.
Yeah.
So I scroll on my phone. I actually sometimes get like life admin done. So I look at my
That's good.
emails. Yeah, yeah. I just look at my emails. Is there delivery coming today? Do I need to tell them to put it next to the garage? Like that sort of life admin. So I scroll on my phone for 20 minutes and then I get out of bed. I then go and make myself an oat milk latte. We have a coffee machine and it's my favourite thing in my house. So I make myself an oat milk latte and then I sit in front of the TV and watch the news.
That's a really nice relaxed start to the day.
Yeah, and I love it. It makes me chilled. Our job is chaotic, so I can't start my day crazy busy. I can't gym in the morning because I need that moment of calm before I go into this crazy job. So that's 6:30 till 7, and then after that, I jump in the shower. I only take 20 minutes to get ready. Like, I'm not going to school with my hair done. I go to school with dripping wet hair.
Yeah.
And then barely any makeup. If I've got mascara on, that's a win.
Yeah.
So it takes me 20 minutes to get ready. I honestly jump in the shower, jump out, put some clothes on, and then leave. So that my
I'm glad to
chill.
put clothes on.
Yeah. So my chill part of my morning is longer than my getting ready because I need that moment of calm.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky. So my school is less than 10-minute drive. So I leave at 7:15 and I'm in my room by 7:30.
Lovely.
So that I'm really lucky with that because I used to work at a school that was like a half an hour drive and it made a big difference in the morning.
Yeah.
I am a science teacher and a Senko and my hours are like 50-50 split. So pretty much exactly half the week I have my teaching hours and then the other half is my Senko work.
Interestingly, really rare that you hear of a Senko with a 50-50 split.
Yeah, so I am Senko Key Stage 4 and 5. So I think that's how it's manageable. So I'm not Senko of the whole school.
Yeah.
I'm technically assistant Senko because I only do Key Stage 4 and 5. My school is reception to year 13.
Yeah.
So I just do those two key stages. And there's 3 of us in the Senko team. So I also wouldn't want to give up my teaching. I don't want to do full-time Senko. I would just want to do, I love my 50-50.
Yeah.
It keeps it so varied. I love teaching, so I don't want to give that up. So my day is pretty much 50-50 split between the 2 roles. There's no consistency. Like I can't do my teaching in the morning and then my Senko in the afternoon because the job is so fluid. And I have to work around when parents can see me. Some parents can only see me when they drop off their kids and pick up their kids because obviously they've got to go to work.
Yeah, of course.
So I have meetings after school or before school. And then sometimes they see me in the day because they don't work. So that's great. So there's no consistency in my day, but 50-50 split is kind of what I'm working at. I leave school. So my school finishes at 4.
Yeah.
I will leave by 4:30.
Good.
I didn't. A couple of years ago, I wasn't. I was leaving at 5:30 every day and I was really exhausted. And I realised that it just wasn't sustainable. And it was starting to make me dislike the profession because I was so tired.
Yeah, of course.
I just couldn't cope with that much time. My lessons, I was basically lesson planning. And I've just had to teach myself to become more efficient than that.
Yeah.
But when you're new to teaching, because I'm only on year 4, you just naturally spend all this time planning because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know the content.
And also, you get excited about planning a really good lesson for your students. And it's so easy to get bogged down into this, I could do that and I could do this and I could do that. But actually, we need to put a limit on how long we spend planning because otherwise, as effective and excited and passionate teachers, we can spend hours planning lessons.
Yeah.
But it's at the detriment of us so that when we actually get in front of the children, we're not good practitioners because we spent all the time planning that we're so exhausted we can't actually teach it.
Yeah, exactly. If I've got A-level the next day, that's where the planning is quite significant. I will be there till 4:30 planning that lesson. Teaching A-level biology is really hard
Mm-hmm.
The content's hard.
Yeah, I remember. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's a lot.
Compared to teaching Key Stage 3. The
So
planning's
different.
huge. So yeah, I'll leave work at 4:30. I'll be home by 4:45. Tuesday I gym,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. I go with work friends, which is really fun.
Oh, that's lovely.
And then every other day that I'm not gymming, we have Gusto. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Gusto, I think.
I love cooking, so we have Gusto. I do spend about half an hour, 45 minutes with Taylor Swift on in my kitchen cooking because I love it.
You're that girl.
Yeah.
You're that Taylor Swift girl.
I am. I'm a Swiftie. So I have that on in the background whilst I'm cooking. I love it. I chill in my evenings. I watch Netflix. I eat chocolate. Like, I spend time with my partner. He gets home at like 6:30, 6:00, 6:30, and we chill. Yeah, I do tutor on Wednesday nights, so that's quite a busy night for me. But other than that, my routine's pretty much standard.
Sounds amazing. Thank you for sharing your typical day. So, our lovely audience, today we are going to be focusing on the difference between corporate and teaching. We are very aware that some people that are currently in teaching have come from the corporate side, or have at least come from industry, not necessarily corporate as such, and they've moved into teaching, and they will have their own opinions on which one is better. And then we also know that there are large amounts of people within teaching or within education that are choosing to leave education and go into industry and corporate. So today we're going to be discussing the difference between the two of those. So there was recently some research done by the National Education Union in 2023, and they had a look at where different groups saw themselves in 5 years' time. So for support staff, a staggering 48% of support staff said they would no longer be in teaching within 5 years. I just want that to sink in. 48% of support staff. And for teachers, and again, a staggering 41% of teachers said they would leave the profession within the next 5 years. 41%.
I mean, that's just huge, isn't it?
It's outrageous. And it's worrying, it's scary. So we thought it'd be fantastic to share our experiences of the difference between corporate and teaching, and maybe investigate what the difference is, potentially sway some people's current opinions. Obviously, everyone's got their own opinions. They've got their own reasons for doing both. Some people might be thinking about leaving teaching, and maybe this podcast will sway them, or it won't, and they will want to leave because they think corporate sounds so much better. So based on that, we are going to be talking through Miss Dearman's difference between corporate and teaching today.
Yeah.
So, Miss Dearman, tell me what your job was before teaching.
So I studied at the University of Bath,
Our favourite place.
Yes, it was incredible, an amazing university. It was final year, we really started thinking about what we're going to do now. So the University of Bath are really good. They held these career fairs, which I don't know if all universities do them, but they're fantastic. So we turned up these career fairs, which was typically in the sports hall.
Mm-hmm.
And basically all of these companies came to the career fair, and it was huge companies. It was like, you walked in, and I remember Jaguar Land Rover was the first one I saw. Not that I know what I'd ever worked for Jaguar Land Rover, but I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So Jaguar Land Rover were there, HSBC were there, Danone were there, like these big corporate companies that were advertising incredible graduate schemes. There was hundreds. Interestingly, I went to university to be a teacher. In my school yearbook, it says Jess is most likely to be, and it said teacher. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. Originally, it was going to be a PE teacher because I loved PE when I was a kid. So I went to university to be a PE teacher. And then I don't know what happened. I went to these career fairs, and all of these big corporate companies were in front of me. And I don't remember making the decision that I wasn't going to be a teacher anymore.
Yeah.
I just kind of got swept away because
it was sort of that following the trend, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think teaching was massively encouraged. I don't remember ever speaking about it with people from university. It wasn't something that people spoke about. So yeah, I went to this career fair and there was all these massive companies. And I ended up applying for a graduate scheme to work at one of these companies that was at the career fair. And to get a graduate scheme, you have to go through a lot of interviews. I think I went through about 5 in the end.
Yeah.
And again, the University of Bath were amazing. They held training sessions on how to pass these graduate scheme assessment centres. My assessment centre was 8 hours long. It was ridiculous.
They're so intense, aren't they?
So intense. But it is interesting that the university prepared me to pass an assessment centre for a corporate big job, but there wasn't the equivalent for going for a teacher job.
Yeah.
Where you have to do a fake lesson as part of an interview. I ended up getting this graduate scheme, passing the assessment centre in London, and then moving to London after university. I had the job secured by Christmas. I hadn't even graduated yet. I wasn't graduating for another 6 months, but the job was already in the bag by Christmas. And then that was it. Done.
You were in.
Off to London. And I didn't really know what I was expecting. My dad's a joiner. My mum, I want to say an accountant, does like the finances.
I would call that an accountant, yes.
Yeah. Does
Wait,
the wages and stuff.
Is it an accountant? No.
I don't think she's a trained accountant, you know. She's going to kill me.
We'll discuss with your mum after later about what her job is.
Yeah, so my dad was trained as a joiner. Mum did something with finance. It wasn't a thing for us to go to London and do this job. So I found myself in London getting the dream job. And I was sat in this ridiculously expensive flat. I paid £1,000 a month for 1 bedroom, shared bathroom, shared kitchen.
Which also back then was even more expensive.
Yeah.
So now it'd be roughly the same. But like back then, £1,000 was crazy money.
Ridiculous. Yeah. I went into the office the first day and it was incredible. Like Chiswick Business Park, for anyone who's ever been there or worked there, it's amazing. It's stunning. Offices are amazing. There's little pods outside that you can work in. Starbucks is on site. Like Starbucks headquarters was actually in our building. It was so awesome. So it was all very exciting at the start. We had mini golf actually as well.
Amazing.
Pool tables.
Love a bit of mini golf.
Awesome. I loved it for the first month. And I realised all I did every day was walk to the office, sat at a desk for 8 hours, 9 hours, and then left. And then did the same.
So to me, that sounds quite lonely. So
yeah,
if we can do a little bit of comparison in terms of loneliness and the structure of that compared to the structure of teaching, in terms of loneliness or sociability, what's the difference between loneliness and sociability between the two?
So it's weird because you're in London, so it's the busiest place in the UK. But I felt the loneliest I'd ever felt. It was so bizarre because it's meant to be that sort of fun, social environment, which it is, but it's weirdly lonely at the same time.
Yeah.
I could do my job and not speak to anyone all day.
Because
you sit at a laptop all day just doing emails and projects. So my actual job and my living environment, I had no one. You don't need anyone to do your job, or the job that I had specifically. And you don't live with anyone. I didn't in London because I was just graduated uni.
Yeah, didn't know anyone.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone. I don't come from London. So yeah, the loneliness was quite heavy and I felt fidgety all the time. I was sitting for 9 hours a day.
No, thank you.
I was so bored.
Find it hard enough sitting down to do half an hour to do the podcast.
I know, yeah. Compared to what I do now in teaching, where I'm on my feet all day, I love it. if I have 10 minutes to sit down, I need it in teaching because I'm like, oh my gosh, can't do this. But I'd rather be that than what I was before.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, so fidgety. My back was always really bad. I gymmed quite a bit. But then if you look into the research of exercise, physical activity, so how active you are in the day, that is more important than just structured exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So just as an example, my day now, as a teacher, I barely sit down, get loads of steps in, move around a lot. I'm obviously doing science experiments. That is healthier than sitting and sleeping for 22 hours a day
Yeah.
and smashing out of the gym for 2 hours. Like, that's not healthier. It's better to be physically active
Yeah, absolutely.
than just to do structured exercise. So yeah, I loved when I moved into teaching, that was a massive plus for me. Having that lifestyle where I didn't have to just sit in one chair. And the company I worked at were really good. They did something called hot desking, which means you don't go to the office and sit in one place. Like, you don't have your own desk, like people move around, which is good because you can sit next to different people every day. So it keeps it a little bit more varied. But it still wasn't enough for me. I was still fidgety, still bored, still lonely. I was drinking gallons of tea a day just for something to
stand
do.
up and go and do something. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd be like, send one cup of tea, didn't need anything, do I need to go to the shop? So I was just like, oh, so fidgety.
Okay, cool. So I think we've worked out that actually, on a social perspective and a movement perspective, being in education has been better for you because you are surrounded by more people within education.
Yes.
And you're able to move a lot more in education.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me.
So actually the how inviting corporate is didn't end up being what you expected it to be.
No, and I was in a really good situation because my offices were lovely, like stunning. They gave me an hour for lunch so I could go to the gym. They were beautiful, but I still wasn't enough. I was still, in my head, I was still sat and not able to move for 8 hours.
Hey, it says a lot if you're changing the really expensive office for a crumbly classroom because the concrete's crumbling. I'll take it. That's fantastic. Okay, what about the pay then? Difference between pay between corporate and education.
I think it won't be a surprise to people listening that when I first became a teacher, I took a big pay cut. And it was a really hard decision because I had just bought a house with my partner based on my wage that I had at corporate. So I had to earn a minimum amount to pay my bills. I wasn't living with my parents. I had bills to pay. So a massive reason to not go into teaching was because of the pay.
Yeah, of course.
And
especially as a trainee.
Yeah, as a trainee, especially. I had a mortgage at the time. So if I didn't become a science teacher, I wouldn't have had is it bursary?
Yeah, bursary.
Yeah. So I had a really good bursary. I think it was 26,000.
Yeah.
To train to be a teacher. Tax-free. Huge.
Lovely. Tax-free makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was really similar to the wage that I was on when I was working in corporate, so that was fine. My training year was fine. If I had trained to be a PE teacher or an art teacher, I would have had no money. And then I wouldn't have been able to train to teach because my partner can't cover my half of the mortgage, the bills, the council tax. So the only option for me to become a teacher was to get a bursary. There was no other option because I had bills to pay.
Yeah, of course.
And so many people fall in this category of, I will really want to train to be a teacher, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Of course, who can afford to not get any money for a year?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then there becomes that element of privilege where it's like, well, your parents could pay for it for you, but not many people are in that bracket of.
So it becomes to that that sort of decision, doesn't it? Of actually, if I want to change my career and have that career change, can I afford that career change? and it becomes less about what you actually want to do and about what you can afford to do.
Yeah.
I think it's important for our audience here. There is lots of different routes that you can choose, and there are monetary benefits to those. I think you just have to look into the ones that are suitable for you.
Yeah.
And provide the monetary support if you need it, so that you can make that step from corporate into teaching or industry into teaching, if that's something you would like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, if the bursary wasn't available, I wouldn't have been able to make the jump.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Yeah.
So you said you've been teaching, so you're in your 4th year of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
If you stayed in your corporate job
Mm-hmm.
and you were there for 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
would your salary match the salary you're on now? Would it be higher or lower?
If I had stayed in corporate, my salary would be higher.
By a significant amount, or
yeah, it would have been.
Okay.
I am now earning more than I did when I quit, which is good. So at the day I quit my corporate job, I'm now earning more than that 4 weeks.
Good.
Into 4 weeks?
That'd be impressive.
4 years into teaching. So I'm now earning more than I did. But if I stayed in corporate, my salary would have been significantly more than it is now.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. Okay, so we have spoken about social. We found out that teaching is a lot more social, and that actually the how inviting corporate is actually didn't hold up to what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously moved into teaching, and you said that the pay is obviously not as good in teaching. You would have had more in corporate. So I suppose if we sort of round that up, your fulfillment in your job now compared to your fulfillment in your corporate job overall, say maybe like 2 benefits of your corporate, 2 benefits of teaching, and then overall, which one do you prefer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I say I love my job, I do really mean it. I teach science and I love it. I teach only biology, not physics and chemistry. I love biology. I teach GCSE biology and A-level biology, and I love my job. I love teaching students. It is the most fulfilling thing I could do with my life. I do genuinely love it. I don't think it's for everyone, but for me, it was the perfect decision. I love going into school every morning and having 100 kids say, "Morning, miss, how are you? Morning, morning." I love it. And it's genuine. It's not like that when you go into a corporate job, it's like, "Morning, another day, another week." That is the attitude that most adults have. But when you go into a school, that environment is like, kids are screaming playing football at 8 o'clock in the morning because they're so happy. Like,
fascinating.
My kids are beautiful. They say thank you all the time. They're just fantastic. I do genuinely get a lot of fulfillment from my job. It is something I want to do for a long time. I mean, I said at the start of this episode that I do a Senko role, but I still split my time 50-50, and I want to keep it like that because I love elements of my Senko job, but ultimately I love being in the classroom.
Yeah,
I love it.
Fantastic.
So fulfillment wise, I'm not sat at my kitchen table anymore thinking, I just don't feel like I'm meant to do this. There was something missing before, which I don't feel anymore. I feel like this is good for me.
Amazing.
The holidays. Oh my gosh. In my corporate job, I had 4 weeks a year.
Yeah, we are so lucky as teachers. 13 weeks for me, and how many for you?
I do it in months. I think I got just
in months.
Yeah, because I've got so many. I think I have just under 4 months of a year.
Lovely.
I just think freedom is so much more important than finance.
Yeah.
And that's just me. Some people love the money chase, and I totally get that. Like, I could see the addiction when I was in London, and people love it. It just wasn't me. I love that I get 4 months, just under 4 months of a year. It's so good.
It's all about that. Teachers, well, I say teachers, actually, I think you and I are people that would like to work to live,
Yes.
not live to work.
Yeah. And it's quite interesting coming out of university, and you get loads of time off at university. We had 4 years of great times. I had such long summers. When you then move into that corporate job where you get 4 weeks off a year, I was confused. I was like, sorry,
where's my holiday?
So I get 28 days. Like,
that's not acceptable.
No.
Okay, so time off and just the fulfillment in the classroom. So for those people that are in corporate thinking about leaving, or for those people that are currently teachers thinking about leaving, to make sure the tables are fair, what 2 things were really fulfilling in your corporate job?
The money.
Okay, money.
Pay. The pay was so much better. And also with corporate jobs, like, you a lot of the time get private healthcare.
Yeah.
That's invaluable.
Yeah.
Private healthcare, especially with the current situation that we have in the UK with the NHS, private healthcare is a great thing to have access to.
It is, absolutely.
Not only that, but you can also put your family on it. At the end of the day, health is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So pay and private healthcare, other perks like that. It's fluid because a lot of teachers now think they're stuck in this profession, which I totally empathise with, because I do partially agree. When I was in my corporate job, the breadth and opportunities I do think were more, because I could just pop off to different companies and they were open to someone doing a slightly different job than they were looking for, because it gives them breadth.
Yeah, more skills under their belt.
Yeah. And whereas I do think teachers apply for teachers' jobs, just at different schools.
Yeah.
Or you apply for one promotion, one step up.
Yeah.
Whereas in corporate, it was, if you don't fancy, I don't know, the HR route, you could look down the marketing route, you could look down the sales route. And they were encouraging of that as well. So trying out different things, it was more fluid. Teachers feel like they have to be teachers.
Yeah.
Whereas in corporate, it's like, you speak to people that are like CEOs and they spent 10 years in, the food industry, and then they move to cars, and then like it's fine to do that. Whereas I don't know how easy it is for a teacher to apply for like a marketing job. I don't know how open.
I would imagine it's not that easy. However, having said that, Teach First, their leadership program, which is your teacher training program, I know they are linked to multiple different corporate companies. So I know some people do go from university to Teach First to do their 2 years of training to be fast-tracked to corporate jobs. So there is, I suppose there's 2 sides of it, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I suppose to round us up for this section, are you happy and content with your choice of moving from corporate to teaching? We only need a 1-word answer.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Amazing. So those of you that watched our Teacher podcast last week, you will know that we did a research bite at the end. And this is a research bite to find out what piece of research that someone currently uses and currently implements in their practice, or a new piece of research that they found that they think they might like to implement, or something they were told at the very beginning of their teacher training that they've always stood by. Yes, based on that, what is your research by?
So I'm going to talk about cognitive load. It's something that's really important to me because my working memory isn't fantastic compared to the average person. So I have a diagnosis of dyslexia, which feeds into my working memory. Also, this is where my whole Senko, my passion for special educational needs, comes in.
Yeah.
So reducing cognitive load for students is really important to me. So I don't have a lot on my PowerPoint slides when I teach, partially for them, but also for me.
Yeah.
There's this great website that we're going to link in the show notes. It's called The Learning Scientist, and he talks a lot about dual coding. So just having a picture on your PowerPoint slides, and then you talk about it with the students, instead of having this crazy thing that happens in all of my teacher training sessions or CPD, where someone's talking at you and then they've got this 10 bullet points behind them with all this text on. As someone that's dyslexic and has a slow working memory, what do I listen? Do I look?
Yeah.
What am I trying to process here? So yeah, it's called The Learning Scientist. It's dual coding, so just having a picture and then you talking, or just having text.
And then that reduces the cognitive load for the children, so they can sort of match what you're saying to the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also cognitive load also links in with this idea. About, I don't know how many years ago, but there used to be this thing that teachers said that was like, you need to decorate your classroom and have a stimulating working environment. No.
Nope.
Oh my gosh. My classroom is lovely. Like, my classroom is gorgeous, but it's not overpowering. It's because the cognitive load is too much. If you go into a classroom and there's billions of things on the walls and there's keywords here and diagrams, it's too much. Just reduce the cognitive load for the pupils. And I touched on it briefly a minute ago. We do this incredible job at my school at reducing cognitive load and using this dual coding idea. But then I speak to my friends that are teachers, and every CPD session they go into, they're sat on inset day for 2 hours listening to someone speak.
With a crazy filled PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And monotonous conversation.
Yeah. This technique is not just for pupils with SEN. It's not just for pupils that are struggling. This is for everyone. Like, this is teachers that need to learn. This is adults. This is kids. Like, this method isn't just for pupils. Everyone should adopt this strategy because it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that research, Vi. We are really appreciative. And if in your practice, our lovely audience, if you don't already use dual coding, we strongly recommend that you put that into your practice. So we will, as we said, we will link the Learning Scientist at the bottom of this podcast. So lastly from us, we just want to say thank you for coming and watching or listening to this podcast again. We are available on Instagram, Spotify, Amazon and YouTube, all of the platforms. So thank you very much, and we will be back next week with
Well-being.
Thank you, Miss Dimon, for reminding me. Good old mind blank there. Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys, and we will see you next week.
Bye.